Today, we are uncovering the 6 fake butter brands sitting in Australian supermarkets right now that are legally allowed to deceive you, and the 4 genuine heavy-duty blocks of real butter you should be buying instead. From major Aussie heritage brands watering down their spreads with cheap canola oil to synthetic margarines disguised as premium plant-based health foods, you are paying top dollar for highly processed chemical emulsions. Stay with me to the very end, because after we expose the worst chemical spreads hiding in your fridge, I'm going to reveal the 4 absolute gold standard Australian butters that are actually made of pure, unadulterated dairy. Australians have been sold a massive, incredibly profitable lie about the fats we eat. We grew up with real hard block butter sitting on the kitchen bench in a ceramic dish. It was pure dairy fat, made from local cows, and it lasted forever. But over the last 40 years, the food industry convinced us that natural dairy fat was dangerous. They told us we needed to switch to highly processed, spreadable alternatives for our heart health. So, they took cheap, highly refined seed oils like canola, sunflower, and palm oil, bleached them, deodorized them, emulsified them with water, and dyed them yellow to look exactly like the real thing. They packaged them in glossy plastic tubs, slapped a picture of a green Australian pasture on the front, and charged you the exact same price as real dairy. You think you are buying a convenient, healthy spread for your morning Vegemite toast, but you are actually buying a heavily marketed tub of industrial seed oil and water. Let us pull back the curtain on the 6 worst fake butter traps you need to avoid today. Number 1. Nuttelex. Both the original and Buttery varieties. Nuttelex is an absolute institution in Australian fridges. It is heavily marketed to families, vegans, and people with dairy allergies. The bright yellow tubs are everywhere, and the word Buttery is splashed across the premium range. But let us look at the actual ingredients driving this iconic spread. Nuttelex contains absolutely zero butter, none. It is a highly processed emulsion made primarily from refined vegetable oils, including sunflower and canola oil, blended with a massive amount of water. To make these liquid oils solid at room temperature and to stop the water from separating out, the manufacturer must use complex industrial emulsifiers. When you put a dollop of Nuttelex into a hot frying pan to cook your eggs, you will notice exactly what this means. Instead of melting into a rich, golden, foaming fat like real butter, it aggressively sizzles, spits, and evaporates, because you are essentially boiling off the hidden water content. So why is this a massive problem for consumers? Because the packaging heavily implies a wholesome, natural, buttery experience, yet you are paying a premium price for what is essentially a tub of refined seed oil and water bound together by food science. The label suggests a healthy, natural, buttery alternative for your family, but the frying pan reveals a watery emulsion of refined vegetable oils that spits and vanishes under high heat. And if you think a traditional dairy brand would not deceive you, number 2 is going to be a massive shock. Number 2, Western Star Spreadable. Western Star is arguably the most famous butter brand in Australia. Their original hard blocks are a staple of Aussie baking. Relying entirely on that massive brand trust, millions of Australians buy the blue and yellow spreadable tubs, assuming they are just getting pre-softened butter. But let us look at the brutal mathematics printed on the back of the tub. To make the butter spreadable straight from the fridge, Western Star cuts the pure dairy butter with a massive percentage of vegetable oil, typically cheap canola oil and extra water. Some of these spreadable blends contain as little as 60% actual butter. You are paying the premium, high-tier Western Star price, but nearly 40% of what you are putting on your toast is cheap industrial seed oil and water filler. What does this actually mean for your body? It means you are unknowingly increasing your intake of highly processed omega-6 fatty acids from the canola oil, entirely defeating the purpose of buying a premium dairy product in the first place. The trusted logo promises the classic rich taste of Australian dairy, now easy to spread. But the ingredient list proves a heavily diluted product where you are paying top dollar for cheap canola oil. Because what you are about to hear changes the way you look at supermarket home brands. Number 3. Woolworths and Coles Dairy Soft Spreads. With inflation crushing Australian household budgets, millions of families have switched to the Woolworths and Coles home brand spreadable butters to save a few dollars. They look almost identical to the Western Star tubs, just with generic branding. But these budget tubs represent the absolute bottom of the barrel when it comes to fat quality. These products push the legal definition of a dairy spread to its absolute limit. Independent consumer tests have shown that these home brand tubs rely incredibly heavily on cheap vegetable oil blends and artificial flavorings to mimic the taste of real dairy. You will open the tub and notice a slightly unnatural, glossy sheen on the surface of the spread and an overly potent, almost movie theater popcorn smell. That is the artificial butter flavoring working overtime. If this is supposed to be a dairy product, why does it smell like a cinema? Because when you remove the high-quality dairy fat to cut costs, you have to inject synthetic chemicals just to fool the human palate. The budget price tag suggests a smart, affordable way to feed the family. But the chemical reality is a highly synthetic oil-based filler, relying on artificial flavors to hide the lack of real cream. And if you thought European imports were superior, number 4 will make you incredibly uncomfortable. Number 4. Lurpak Spreadable. Lurpak is viewed as the absolute height of supermarket luxury. The silver foil, the Danish heritage, and the massive price tag convince Australians that they are buying the finest culinary fat available. But grab the Lurpak Spreadable tub and look closely at the fine print. Just like the local brands, Lurpak achieves its soft texture by blending their famous butter with rapeseed oil, which is just the European term for canola oil. While the percentage of butter is often slightly higher than the cheap Australian home brands, the deception is exactly the same. You are paying upwards of $8 or $9 for a single tub of butter, but a significant portion of that weight is just highly refined, cheap seed oil. Why should you care if it still tastes good? Because you are paying a massive, imported luxury tax for a product that has been intentionally diluted with one of the cheapest oils on the global commodity market. The premium silver packaging promises uncompromising European culinary excellence, but the dilution ratio reveals a luxury-priced tub that has been quietly watered down with cheap rapeseed oil. Because the next brand proves that plant-based marketing is often just a mask for extreme processing. Number 5. Flora Plant Butter. Flora recently launched their plant butter block, wrapping it in paper parchment, so it looks and feels exactly like a traditional block of farmhouse dairy butter. It is heavily marketed to the trendy, environmentally conscious plant-based crowd in Australia. But let us strip away the greenwashing and look at the brutal industrial reality of this block. You cannot milk a plant. To create a hard block of fat from liquid plant oils, the manufacturer must use a highly complex cocktail of palm oil, sunflower oil, and canola oil, heavily processed and emulsified to mimic the melting point of real dairy. The environmental irony here is staggering. Shoppers buy this to save the environment, yet they are consuming massive amounts of globally shipped palm oil, a product infamous for devastating deforestation, while ignoring locally produced, single-ingredient Australian dairy. What does this mean for your cooking? It means you are paying a massive premium for a highly engineered block of margarine that has been cleverly repackaged to look like artisanal butter. The trendy paper wrapper suggests a clean, sustainable, plant-based alternative to dairy. But the supply chain reality says a heavily processed block of imported palm and seed oils disguised by brilliant greenwashing. And finally, the brand that exploits pure Australian nostalgia. Number 6. Devondale Spreadable. Devondale is an iconic Australian dairy cooperative. Their milk and hard block butters are legendary, but their spreadable tubs fall into the exact same deceptive trap as Western Star. When you look at the ingredients of the Devondale Spreadable, you will find the exact same blend of butter, water, and canola oil. But the real issue here is the texture over time. Many highly frustrated shoppers note that as the tub sits in the fridge, the emulsion begins to break down. The water separates from the oil, leaving a strange, watery liquid pooling in the corners of the plastic tub, while the spread itself takes on a greasy, unnatural mouthfeel. If this is made by legendary Australian dairy farmers, why does it weep water in the fridge? Because you cannot trick basic chemistry forever. When you forcefully blend water and refined oil into dairy fat, it eventually wants to separate. The trusted farm logo promises pure, honest dairy from Australian farmers, but the physical product delivers an unstable emulsion that slowly separates into water and canola oil in your fridge. Do you see the massive, glaring pattern here? The entire spreadable butter and margarine industry in Australia relies heavily on visual deception. They use the word Buttery to sell you pure vegetable oil. They take trusted heritage dairy brands and secretly dilute them with cheap canola oil. They use synthetic butter flavors to hide the lack of actual cream. And they use trendy, plant-based greenwashing to sell you heavily processed palm oil blocks. They want you to pay premium dairy prices for products that cost them absolute pennies to manufacture. But you do not have to accept this highly processed chemical experiment on your morning toast. Now let us talk about the Australian options that are actually worth your time, your money, and your health. If you want the real health benefits of natural dairy, you need to buy products with exactly 2 ingredients: pasteurized cream and salt. That is it. Here are the 4 absolute best real butters you can buy in Australia today. Option 1. Aldi Beautifully Butterfully Hard Block. Do not buy their spreadable tub. Buy the solid foil-wrapped block. Consumer advocacy group Choice Australia recently blind taste tested this exact budget block against the most expensive premium brands in the country, and it consistently ranked in the top 3 for taste and quality. It is made from pure Australian cream. It costs a fraction of the big brands, and it contains absolutely 0 vegetable oils. Option 2. Western Star Original Hard Block. While their spreadable tubs are a massive trap, the original foil-wrapped Western Star block remains an absolute gold standard. It is the exact same recipe they have used for decades. It is rich, it is culturally iconic, and it performs flawlessly in baking and frying because it does not contain the hidden water content of the spreadable variants. Option 3. Mainland Buttersoft. If you absolutely must have a butter that is soft straight from the fridge, Mainland Buttersoft is the only true exception to the rule. Unlike every other spreadable brand, Mainland does not use any vegetable or canola oil. Instead, they use a highly advanced mechanical triple churning process that physically isolates the softer milk fats, allowing it to remain spreadable without adding a single drop of cheap seed oil. It is 100% pure dairy. Option 4. Tatura Butter. Tatura is a quiet, unassuming brand produced in regional Victoria. It is incredibly highly regarded by Australian food purists and bakers. It has a deep, rich, authentic flavour because it comes straight from a local regional dairy hub, completely avoiding the massive, over-processed corporate supply chains. It is the definition of supporting local Australian farmers. Australian food culture has drifted dangerously far from reality. We used to eat simple, one-ingredient foods. Now we blindly pay $9 for a plastic tub of emulsified canola oil and artificial flavorings, simply because the television told us it was easier to spread. You do not have to consume highly processed industrial oils. You do not have to pay a luxury tax for watered-down dairy. Start reading the ingredient lists. Stop buying the convenient plastic tubs. buy the hard foil blocks, leave a small amount in a covered butter dish on your kitchen bench, and return to real, honest Australian food. If this video opened your eyes to the massive scams hiding in the dairy aisle, tap the like button so more Aussies can protect their families from these highly processed spreads. If you want to stay one step ahead of the deceptive supermarket industry and protect your health, hit subscribe and turn on notifications because we are just getting started. Now, I want to hear from you in the comments. Which fake butter brand shocked you the most today? Have you ever noticed your spreadable butter spitting water in the frying pan? Let me know your stories below.